Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. Good morning, y'all. Tuesday, 13th of July. Man, this time is flying, isn't it? Mm. We always ask you how you doing in this COVID environment. I'm getting kind of conflicted here because, at one point it looked like we getting okay and y'all out there hugging and kissing and, we glad to get together, and then shoot, wake up in the morning and they said you might need a booster. Johnson vaccine causing craziness in your brain. I don't know. So I guess the best thing is to, continue to be safe. Wear your mask, I guess. They saying sometimes you don't wear your mask, but it's looking like, got to do it. Got to stay safe. Social distance where you can. And pray. That's really the whole thing, right? Just got to keep it covered. Wow. A lot going on in the world right now. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to get right into it. Really honored for our guest before us. And always, just really blessed and grateful is the word I'm searching for, to be able to reach through my phone and, get the academics, the intellectuals, the influencers on all of these subjects, because, we're just observers of the community from a global perspective, participants in the diaspora, awake and aware, but, we need to get the information from the deep thought leaders, right? And so that's why we're happy to have Dr. Anthony Samad on here. And also my new friend, Monique Kleska, coming in to talk about Haiti. Let's get things started. Last week we were talking about Sister Nikole Hannah Jones there said, hey, you know what? I don't want your tenure. Wow. After fighting for it, then she said, you know what? I'm not with it. So let's see. Let's bring Dr. Anthony Saban in. Good morning, my brother.
Good morning, my brother. Brother Greg J.
Look, can I have your autograph? I'm looking at Black News Channel and kaboom, I see you on there. I just started smiling. I said, look at my brother. He's on there making it happen. May I have your autograph, sir?
Oh, you guys, y'all put me on the air first, over 20 years ago. Remember they tried to hand off, front page to me, and then, the interlopers got involved. Plus, it was too early in the morning to get up every day at 4:30. I've always appreciated the fact that you supported me, and the platforms that you've been associated with have given me the opportunity to share my view, share my intellectualism, and so you don't forget things like that. And so, that's a lifelong piece there.
Yes, sir. And I greatly appreciate that. And of course, because I really believe, we want to definitely acknowledge the situations and circumstances that we're faced with across the diaspora, but it's also important to get past the emotionalism that draws us out into the streets and say, no justice, no peace, and begin to really apply our brains, the intellectualism to these problems that we are faced with. I think that's really, really important. We want to talk about Sister Nikole, but let me bring my friend in, my new friend, Monique Kleska. Good morning, Monique. Uh-oh, I can't see you. I can see you, but I can't see you. Let me send her a text to bring her in. Monique, Dr. Samad is an advocate for Haiti. We're going to talk about the situation down there in Haiti because it's very important. She's an author. She's a journalist. She's a real influencer in matters of the Caribbean, and I think it's important to have her voice here on to our discussion. But Sister Nikole, okay, so last week she's the, what would you say, the author, the creator of the 1619 Project. She's trying to get tenure. She fights for tenure. They finally say okay after much to do. And after they say okay, she says, you know what? I'm out. I'm going to Howard University. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, let's get back to the platform you've laid. You know, there are so many things happening to Black people, and we only seem to want to pay attention to the low-hanging fruit. You know, the police misconduct issue certainly is a prevalent issue, but it's low-hanging fruit. You know, there may be 100 things that have happened to Black people, you know, 99 things, and police abuse ain't one, you know. But yet that's the only one we pay attention to. And this tenure thing is been going on for some time. Okay, you remember this also happened to Cornel West a few years ago, where when he came back to Harvard, they didn't want to give him tenure, you know. And in fact, he just resigned again, even though they conceded. I gave him tenure and he came back, you know. He just resigned again from Harvard. And Black academics know how difficult tenure it is to get. Tenure is protected work for life, meaning academics basically can teach forever. You know, they can lose their memory, but as long as they can talk and chalk their subject, they have a job for life. It's a very exclusive, you know, boys and girls club. And I have always advocated, you know, in my writings 30 years ago, that white people don't have a lock on knowledge. There's so much that they don't know, and they won't teach because they don't know. And our history and our experience is one of them, because they basically help perfect the artificial history that we now call American history. And now that history is being deconstructed, they don't want to be a part of that, and they don't want to let in new knowledge that has basically perfected that as an expertise. And so Dr. Hannah Jones basically has, you know, used this time to show the transitions in American racism history. Okay. Similarly, at Cal State Dominguez Hills, we're doing a racial retrogression study that covers a 100-year period. She went back 400 years. But we're basically, you know, documenting that Black people have been running in place for 100 years. Wow. Okay, since 1919. And we're back at race riots in 2019, you know. And so the tenure game has always, you know, been a politic. It's like getting your doctoral dissertation. It's like getting past your dissertation committee. You know, there's some hazing going on, you know, but eventually they say, congratulations, doctor. Well, in this instance, you know, this is to basically researchers and develop some groundbreaking research, okay? And they want to reject her from the academy. What denial of tenure means is that basically, you know, they can put you on a contract, whether it's a 1-year contract, 3-year contract, 5-year contract, and opt not to keep you after that if they don't think that your scholarship has been up to par. Whereas once you have tenure, it's unquestionable. Then the politic becomes, you know, the endowed chairmanships. Have your you know, scholarship been up to the point where we can give you an endowed chairmanship, those types of things. And so the denial of tenure issue is not new. What is new, though, is that finally Black people stop being silent about it, largely because you would be blackballed in the academy if you made a big deal about it. And so she decided to take her piece public because she is a public intellectual. The 1619 Project made her a public intellectual. Okay. And other academics was like, that's ridiculous. Ain't nobody writing, the kind of stuff this sister's writing. So in order not to embarrass themselves, and embarrass the university, they decided that they wanted to, retract that, declination. In the meantime, some other universities said, well, we have an opportunity over here. And, I'm a firm believer, that we go into places where we're celebrated, not places in which we're tolerated.
That's right.
And we kind of find ourselves in that situation. If you don't want to love me, somebody else will. Isley Brothers said it worth. If you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you with.
Good.
There's opportunities to the left. Beyonce say that too. Basically, back to appreciating those who appreciate you.
Yes, Molly Bell, God bless you too. We thank you for checking in with us. We over here chopping it up. We got a lot to talk about this morning here. I see Monique trying to check in with us. I want to get her take on this before we move forward. But in the interest of time, because it is such a lot to say, let me ask you this. All right. So now she's gone to Howard, and that's a good thing. Now let's change lanes over to the whole issue of voter reform. I mean, the Democrats had several $1 million initiative, I Will Vote. The Democrats in Texas, I guess, or the Republicans in Texas are about to roll up into Washington, D.C. I saw that on the news this morning to say, because they want to filibuster everything. What is going on? What is going on out here where we can't vote? Because when I was coming up, man, everybody votes. That was the whole victory. Everybody votes. What's the problem?
Well, here's the problem, that there have been, in particular, 2 recent Supreme Court decisions that basically have limited voting on a certain level, voter restriction, closing windows in which people can vote before elections, or requiring them, to take their ballots in as opposed to mail their ballots in, or, basically requiring IDs at the ballot box, which is basically saying that they don't trust you to be who you say you are, and so they want to see in person, white people validation kind of thing, which of course intimidates folk of Latino descent and intimidates Black people, largely because they associated, with government checking in on you. Why should I vote if I got warrants? Why should I vote if, there's a possibility that they could confuse me with somebody else with the same name? Those types of things. And so the Biden administration, to its credit, basically puts this, $25 million initiative together, and it invites, civil rights groups, to the White House, which, I have a symbolic problem with that, but, the reality is that they gave the money to Howard, where they usually give that money to Georgetown or Columbia or Stanford or something like that. And there are people who are pissed off that they gave the money to Howard. I'm happy they gave the money to Howard, because why should we let, other institutions, particularly predominantly white institutions, study us any more than they have studied us over the past 250 years. Okay. And there is scholarship at Howard University. So I think that that's an initiative to basically educate the 50 states about what's going on in these court rulings and in these movements, because the states the federal government says you have the right to vote, but the states determine when you vote and how you vote. And so that's where the voter manipulation and the voter suppression comes in.
All right, let's try to bring Monique Kleska in. First of all, you guys, she is a writer, a journalist, a retired international development and communication expert. She's an advocate for Haiti, girls, women, youth, and we're gonna go over and talk about the situation down in Haiti, because you know how we do it here. We're global. We're looking at everything in the diaspora. We're not going to leave the subject quite yet. I'm just trying to make sure that our connection is strong, right? There she is. Monique Cleska. Bonjour.
Bonjour. Good morning. Nice to see you all. Yes.
Nice to meet
sorry
you also.
about the bad connection.
It's okay. I think long as we're in, because we have it's important dialogue that we need on this morning. Yes.
Exactly. Thank you very
Yes.
much. I'm very glad, and hello to everybody out there.
Yes. Good stuff. Now, Monique, you're here in America. I know you. I could even hear your accent. I know you're from Haiti, and you're an expert of all things Haiti. But what are your thoughts? I'm sure you've been hearing a little bit about this voter reform and what we're faced with. As a journalist, as a writer, as a thinker, what are your thoughts?
Well, it is going back more than 50 years, and all the struggles that we thought we had won, because I am Howard University, my alma mater. And I remember these were part of the struggles. We were marching for civil rights at the time. And it's kind of the feeling I had when I saw all the laws being pushed by the Republicans in various states. I just felt very discouraged that we were going back years. But in trying to do this, thinking that they're taking us back years, I think the struggle is at a different point now. There are more people who are in power who can make things different. And I think it also shows that power is not about just being at the top, but a top of the states also. Because while we were thinking of Congress, we were thinking of the presidency, but it was important to be in the state legislatures. And I think that's a lesson that needs to be learned. Just to say that I'm in Haiti, I'm traveling in the next couple of days, but it's still Haiti.
It's so interesting to hear. I didn't know that you were the Howard is your alma mater. That's really great, really great. All right, so now what is the most important thing that we can pass out. Both of you can answer this. That we can encourage our friends and family when we go to church, when we go to the club, when we go out here, we see the homies on the street. What do we need to tell them there, Dr. Anthony, about this voting thing?
Well, first of all, we have to battle on all fronts. I saw Miss Molly Bell in the chat talking about, glad to see you still on the battlefield. I never left the battlefield. I'm just on another level, been on another level. But I've always been out there, if you stay in the same place, for 20, 30 years, you never grow. And some people like the front line. I happen to believe our battles are on other fronts. The 99 problems and certain things ain't one, and so when we talk about voting, a lot of our voting is personality voting. We get behind black faces. We get behind the folk we know. We get behind celebrities with the affiliate, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Donald Trump thing. But we have to become more sophisticated in our voting. And I think this is an attempt to raise the voter sophistication of suppressed voters and historically discriminated against voters. We just can't wait till election time to tell people to go vote for so-and-so. Okay, we have to understand the mechanisms behind voter suppression. And I think this is an attempt to address that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Monique, what do we tell the everyday person about voting? What do we think? Let me see if I can get you. I can't. Oh, there you are. What do you think, Monique? What do you tell the everyday person, just in casual conversation, us normal folks out here on the ground? How should we share our ideas about voting as we watch this news unfold before us? Look, she can hear me.
Well, I think it is a right for which a lot of people have died. A lot of people have died to make sure that Americans and Black Americans have the right to vote. And even women have the right to vote. So it is important to not only honor that memory, but to respect that and vote. And I think, I am not I am a Haitian by nationality. I have a green card. But one of the things that I always do is tell my daughter, who is an American citizen, have you voted? Have you gone to vote? My mother became an American citizen, and I also tell her, have you voted? My sister, who is an American citizen, I'm the only one of the bunch who's not American, but I'm always asking them, did you send your vote already? Did you vote? Because I think it's important. And if I can make a comparison to Haiti, one of the big issues we have in Haiti is that in the last election, only 18% of the electorate voted. So the president was, in a way, extremely illegitimate. And it really is our fault because we were so disenchanted with the system that we did not vote. So to me, it is sacred. The vote is absolutely sacred. So inviting everyone to really know how blessed they are for the fact that so many people struggle to get the vote. And in other countries, so many people do not have the luxury of being able to vote for who they want. So it is a sacred right.
Mhm, mhm. That's a perfect pivot there. As we now widen our lens to the diaspora, man, we're seeing, you know, uh, black countries um, steeped in democracy. South Africa, they put Jacob Zuma in jail, and now the people are there rioting all crazy out there. It's just really in disarray. Down in Haiti, they assassinated the president there, and now people are, things are uncertain. Haiti is very close to the United States. Large Haitian community all across. You know some Haitians in the hood. You know how it is. It's like that is very close to us, and it's interesting to watch what has happened here. I want to bring back to you all's remembrance our Auntie Maxine, the most gangster move ever, is when she went to get President Aristide and get him out of Haiti to escape whatever was happening back there. And she's been a long time champion and a voice for Haiti. On Capitol Hill. So the story that we're seeing now, the president assassinated last week. Now people are in, they don't know what's going to happen. But I think uh, for context, Monique, please tell us. So the president, Jovenal Moise, how you say it? Moise, was assassinated, but yet he was not very popular, and I did see that a lot in my
Moise,
research.
Moise.
Moise, okay, I did see that in my research. Um, how did he how did he even get in power? Talk up to me a little bit more about that.
Well, I question that also. I think it's a question I've debated a lot. And I think he got in power. He was relatively unknown. And at one point, some people who had a lot of money and who wanted a lot of power created a narrative about this black man from the boondocks who was a farmer, a banana farmer, and who wanted to take over Haiti and be the president. There really was no project presented, and everybody got involved into that narrative, and they became the head of state. And that's when we started to discover what was behind this man, because he appeared to be somebody who didn't know anything, who had made it well, and was successful as a banana farmer. But what we found out was that he was very corrupt. The corruption reports from the Court of Auditors showed that he had about 50 citations for corruption. So this was somebody almost kind of like a front man that some people who wanted power put in there, because he looked like us. He was very skinny. He looked like he was, in a way, in quotation mark, from the hood, and he had that language. And so they put him in there for their own interest. And that basically shows that you really got to know who you're voting for, and you really have to exercise your rights. At one point, Mr. Moise even said, the, I'm sorry about the noise, trucks going back and forth, but at one point, Mr. Moise said, next to God, he was the most powerful person. So Haitians started to nickname him after God. That was his nickname, after God. So he really had the language, he had the actions of a dictator. He was, in fact, a dictator. He became a dictator.
So now they're asking in Haiti, they're asking the U.S. government to send in military troops. Do you agree with that?
No. And I would say it's not they are asking, it is the people that Moise had put in power who are asking for troops to come. And we say no to that. We do not need American troops. We do not need UN troops. We do not need troops. What we need is for Haitians to come together and say, what we have now is a major crisis. It is an existential crisis. And what we need is solidarity. We really need for the Black community to see the parallels between the struggle of the racism, the struggle of the social justice agenda, the struggle of police brutality, and really make a parallel with our struggle today, which is injustice, which is inequality, which is almost like an apartheid type of exclusion that we have been living under. We need health care. This is the same kind of situation where lack of health care, lack of educational opportunities, lack of decent jobs. And we really need for the Black community to rise up, in all communities, the Latino communities, all communities, to come together and say, we are for the Haitians.
We lost her there. I'm sure she'll come back in. But Dr. Saban, historically, I'm a former Marine and I'm very proud of that fact. But one area of military history that I just discovered, and I was like, dang, they didn't tell us about this, is the Marines occupied Haiti for 2, almost 3 years during the Coolidge administration. And it was a time of brutality because, in those days, white folks were they didn't like black folks, so here they are down in a black country, and there were mass executions. There were all kinds of terrorist. It was a terrorist occupation perpetrated by the government through the United States Marine Corps. And so here we are again trying to get our troops down there. I mean, America doesn't have the best record in Haiti.
Well, let's say this. The United States have always targeted Haiti from the time it declared its independence in 1804. It was a peace where, if the United States couldn't control, or Britain couldn't control the economy and the leadership, then they basically refused to help the country. And this situation, what Dr. Monique was talking about, the United States have historically propped up leaders. Okay, this basically was a puppet president that the people obviously didn't accept, because he didn't have the backing of the military. Usually, when a leader is killed, military is the number one suspect. Even though the United States may have a hand in it, they can provide intelligence and information. It was, he apparently didn't have the love of the people in the same way that Aristide did, and the United States refused to support him. United States Congress people did, but the United States never put any resources or any money or any military behind that. And so the destabilization of Haiti basically works in the United States' favor. And the United States going over there, I don't think would be well received, because they basically view the United States as occupiers, not necessarily supporters or helpers.
That's now. Let me ask you a question there, Monique. Are the French still in play here in this whole dynamic? Are the French still in play?
No, not really. They were a very minor player. They are a very minor player. It's the United States that is a major player, and the UN is also a major player, and the UN head is a Trump appointee. The UN head here is a former Trump. Well, now Trump is gone for the moment, anyway. An appointee. So it is basically the same kind of policy. You should have election. We are telling unions are saying pretty much, and I think Congressman Meeks, Congressman Maxime Waters, and Congressman Val Demings, Congressman Levin have really been pushing to say, listen to Haitian voices, listen to Haitian underground, listen to Haitian civil society, human rights organizations, and I think that is definitely the way to go, to listen to us, because these people have no legitimacy. Moise was assassinated. Within 24 hours, they were fighting between each other before his body was even cold. Finally, it's only today that they set up something to organize his funeral. Whatever it is, our struggle remains a struggle for social justice. It remains a struggle against corruption, against impunity, and against the big brother who has his boots on our necks. And I use that analogy very often. The struggle is really about getting others to remove their boots from Haitians' necks, because our lives matter also. And we're asking for the solidarity of people of color, Black Americans, Latino communities, Asian communities, to really kind of stand up with us Haitians and say, no, Americans should not be going to Haiti. No troops. We do not want troops here.
What is your assessment of this doctor that they arrested as, I guess, sort of, they're saying he's the mastermind of the assassination, Dr. Sanon?
Dr. Asano, I heard about it, but they are Colombians, they are Venezuelans, they are Haitians, they are Haitian Americans. But bottom line, it's an international thing. Is it linked with international mafia, drug, money, I don't know, but it smells bad. And one of the things that I have learned is when it smells bad, chances are it is as bad or worse than what it smells. But bottom line, I don't want to get into the kind of diversionary tactics. What is at stake is Haitians are hungry. We have about 40% of Haitians who are into food insecurity. We need justice, yes, but we also need this kind of justice so that nobody goes hungry at night. We also need justice so that the killers of Moise are brought to justice. But we need justice also for the people who were massacred by Jovenel Moise regime and the gangs that he associated with. So I just want to be clear that whether it's Sanon, whether it's the Colombians or whatever, we need to put Haitian lives to say right now, let's pay more attention to the Haitians who are suffering because this guy had us suffer. Yes, I'm very sorry that he died. I'm hoping that it was embarrassing that a president could die in his bedroom, as they said. It's embarrassing that foreigners are involved in this. We need to find justice, but we also need not to lose sight of everything else that is going on with Haitians going hungry, with all the massacres that Jovenel Moise and his gang perpetrated. We need to, keep our focus on limiting inequality or erasing inequality and our social justice agenda. Let justice do its course for Moise, but let it do its course for all the others that Moise assassinated. And that's what we are saying. We need to be heard right now.
I'm sitting here. I'm wondering. Okay, so what can we do? I hear you loud and clear when you say, "Hey, the Black community, you need our support." But other than us sending you good, positive vibrations, what else can we do? How can we help? And I'm wondering, where are you anyway, Monique? Are you in Haiti?
Well, I think it's
I say this.
It's about what we activists on the ground are saying in terms of social justice. I am in Port-au-Prince. In Port-au-Prince right now. Okay. It is also about doing advocacy, calling your Congress people. Maxime Waters, as I said, has been always speaking out for us. Gregory Mix is really at the center of a lot of what is going on in terms of telling people, listen to Haitian voices. We need help in terms of the Black, Latino, Asian community to tell Joe Biden not to send troops to Haiti. We really need that kind of support, and we need it loud and clear, and we need it like we needed it yesterday. And it has to be sustained, and it has to be really very potent, invade the airwaves, and be the voices for Haitians who are saying, no, do not bring your troops to Haiti. We do not need it. Anything we need is solidarity, and we need help with perhaps mediation. We need help with helping Haitians get around the table and talking together to find a consensus agenda. This is what we need from the communities. Thank you.
So there you have it. Let me put. I guess we better write Auntie Maxine today. Let me look that up and put that in the chat so we can write our favorite congressperson, Karen Bass too in our area. Just the whole Black caucus, huh? We just need the whole Black caucus, huh, Dr. Anthony?
Well, I think the important thing is that we don't make the mistake that we have made in the past. when Haiti suffered serious earthquakes, and we provided emergency assistance to the Haitian people. A lot of the money didn't get to the Haitian people because we went through Red Cross and some of the other vehicles that take a disproportionate amount of the money in administrative fees, and we didn't find that out until years later.
So to make sure that the money and the assistance gets down there to Haiti, we want to make sure that our voices are heard at the level of Congress, writing our Congress people, encouraging them to encourage the president, do not send troops down there. I don't think he is. I saw something today where he just said the Haitians need to get together and solve their problems. So I don't think he's going to do that.
Well, they look at the Haitians like they look at the Cubans, like they look at the Iranians, Iraqis, Afghans. We appreciate you advocating for freedom, but we're not getting in the middle of that. The only reason we over there is because we was looking for somebody, when we was looking in the wrong places and couldn't withdraw. We participated in the destabilization, so we had to participate in the restabilization. And so America is never going to provide, the kind of assistance to Haiti. One of the things, and I wanted to ask, our sister about this. Do you know that France, has still has Haiti paying reparations?
I wanted to get to that too.
Nobody wants to pay us reparations, but for escaping, the world community made little bitty Haiti pay France reparations.
I wanted to get to that too, Dr. Saban, because the French now, it's important to note that they're making Haiti pay reparations, and it's generally thought that the taxes, the colonial tax, is so great that is why Haiti remains so poor, right? There are 13 or more nations on the continent of Africa that were former colonies, and as a condition of their independence, they are still paying colonial tax to France. There are those who say that France would be a poor nation if they were not collecting reparations, colonial tax from these different folks in the different nations in the continent of Africa. It is amazing what France has done to the diaspora, even unto this day.
Right, absolutely. A country can't sustain, many of the colonial nations or the colonizers, as a form of apology for slavery, have forgiven debt, but France has not. And every place that France has held, they said, no, we still want our money, and we're not forgiving our debt, and we're not doing any of that. And so, and the world community does not lean on France because of its strategic positioning in Europe. They have a vested interest in protecting France. The running joke is France ain't gonna fight nobody, but everybody will fight for France.
That's right. Wow. Some of those countries even hold their national reserves are in the banks of France and controlled by the French. And then there are some countries on the business tip. If you and I went over to certain nations in Africa to try to do business, we would not be able to make that contract, fulfill that contract, unless we subcontracted a French company. So we would have to go over to, just for sake of conversation, go over to Senegal and then go up into Paris to do our deal.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's crazy, man, that Frenchman, and then too, it's also a good observation, I believe, of fear, because France, Haiti was a slave colony, and it is the only successful slave revolt. My mother taught me about General Toussaint Louverture, and I think that white America is probably afraid. They don't want that to happen.
Well, they've learned they treat Haiti the same way they treat Cuba, because the United States propped up Batiste, and it basically Castro not only overthrew Batiste, but he basically reigned for 50 years in the backyard of the United States, and they tried to do everything. They tried to kill him. They hold him, responsible for the assassination of an American president. That's one of the top 5 conspiracy theories, but America does things, to other countries and don't expect it's going to come back on them. I'm not going to get caught up in the Malcolm quote, but the reality is the reality, and so the treatment of Haiti, we've seen it in other places too, and Panama. They're still punishing Panama, even though they partnered with Panama, to do the Panama Canal. And, American commerce, global commerce wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for the Panama Canal. They would have had to sail all the way around the bottom of South America, and then, turn around and turn on your partner. You let him bring drugs in the country, but then you turn around and arrest the leader, Manuel Noriega, once it's discovered, that you can't overthrow the Nicaraguans, regime with outside funded military, ragtag teams. And once it's exposed, then you say, no, it's not me, it's Noriega. That's just the history of the United States with countries in the Caribbean and in Latin America.
And, countries that the majority of the people look like us.
Right.
Isn't it interesting that you have, like in Cuba now, all this unrest going on over in South Africa, all this unrest going on. I'm trying to do a show on the South Africa piece because I have so many friends over there. But my opinion, this is just Greg J's opinion, is that Jacob Zuma was not really the best president for the people. That's just my observation. But, when they put him in jail, he's gone to jail for basically, in a nutshell, contempt of court, right? So they told him to show up to court and he didn't. He said, screw you. So they arrested him, right? But the Zulu nation, because Jacob Zuma is a Zulu, is just going crazy over in the KwaZulu-Natal. Is the rioting in the streets, looting over in Johannesburg, everything like that. So the people, it always comes down to the people. The people are taking to the streets. And I'm trying to hear, what are they saying? We just heard Sister Monique say, hey, you know what? We want basically fair elections. We want this social justice, end of police brutality. And I think that's what the people in Cuba are saying. And then even the people over in South Africa, the message is still the same all across the diaspora.
Well, one of the things that our previous speaker said was that 40% of Haitians are food insecure. Okay. And so basically it's real ironic that all of this upheaval is taking place in the midst of a global pandemic. Okay, what the contagion did, it basically brought the global economy to a standstill. I mean, we've seen it here in the United States. It happened when Jimmy Carter was president. When inflation rose and there was gas shortages and there were food shortages, then suddenly the people turned on Carter. Okay, and that's how we ended up getting Reagan. He was telling basically, a lot of people think this make America great again was Donald Trump's mantra. No, that was originally Ronald Reagan's mantra, make America great again. Right. Telling white people, dog whistling to white people that we can do better than this. And you elect one of us and we'll make it happen. And then he brought in 2 years later, the largest tax cut in the history of America, cutting social services, cutting benefits, cutting investment in urban cities, all of those things. And so we see a variation of that in countries that don't have large disposable incomes. I think I read that the average Haitian makes $40 a week or something like that, and that's not a lot of discretionary income. And then there's no food, they're importing of destabilization basically cuts off the supply lines, be it the food supply lines or the military supply lines. So it leaves the people quite vulnerable. And I think that there is a similar situation going on over in Cuba. And I think that there is a lot less respect, for the regime that followed the Castros. They don't have the emotional attachment of, the founders of the revolutionary that they have to this new administration. Okay. And it's the same going on in South Africa. They don't have the same attachment, to this president that they had to those who were part of the ANC revolution. Okay. So they were like, okay, it's been 30 years now, we should be seeing some, benefits, to the revolution. And it just has not come about yet.
Well, it's interesting you say it's like in South Africa, they got their freedom, yes. And we've had a number of journalists and influencers, live from Johannesburg and Durban on Coffee Conversations, and they all say the same thing. Say, yeah, we're free, but we're not free from the economics. They gave us freedom, but they kept the economics, and that's really what it came down to.
Well, remember when we was down there in 2018, they were having televised congressional hearings and making white South Africans give some of that land back.
Yes.
They were trying to negotiate, how much of the land would be returned before Congress would have to take an action to take the land back. I don't know how much television, because, we were too busy jazz traveling, but I try to watch a lot of television.
A little bit. That's right. Trying to keep up.
But I got to make sure where I'm going is stable.
Yeah. It's so interesting. What? A good transition, because I'm gonna tell you something, man. You're a big sports fan. So what do you make of the soccer? The English lost the Euro Cup to the Italians, but now they're spotlighting the racism that the brothers on the English team are enduring. And what I do know about soccer is that the blacks that play, and there's a lot of them that play in this European league, this is their journey. It's like if they're stars, they're getting called nigga and monkey and bananas thrown at them on a regular basis. It's just being spotlighted right now. It's just really something. What's your take on the whole blacks being victims of racism?
Well, remember, you had a couple of incidents this year in the NBA on that, where folk was calling NBA players the N-word and throwing beer and on Westbrook and a few other things. I think I would rather shift that light onto the awareness of black athletes. When Osaka decided that she didn't want to play, and all of a sudden there was this outrage, and she says, I have a right, to self-care. I'm not just here to entertain you. I think that's what was going on, quite frankly, with Kyrie Irving, where after every time there was a police killing or every time there was a police, shooting or incident, he would take a couple weeks off. He's like, man, I can't think about basketball right now. We're expected to push through it all. Okay. And right now, athletes are recognizing that they're just not trying to entertain white folk if white folk don't want to speak up for what's going on in the world that impacts, African Americans and African American athletes. on a human level, on a daily level, and so I think that's some of what we're seeing. You can be on the team as long as you're of use to us. And the reason they turned on the brothers is because they missed some free kicks that could have possibly given England the victory. And, they turned on them like the stepchilds that they treat us like.
That's right.
And so that's another element of our societal engagement. I mean, it's the same thing, with Nikole Hannah Jones. As long as she's one of theirs, she's cool. But the moment that she exerts some independence, then they have no use for her, or they want to marginalize, her value. And she refused to allow her value to be marginalized.
One thing is sure, I would love to encourage people to begin to embrace soccer in your sports diet. I know it's not that popular among us. I'll tell you the story there, Dr. Saban. I was down in South, when we go to South Africa for the Jazz Festival, it's always during March Madness.
Right.
So I go to the bar at my hotel. I'm about to see the Sweet 16 over there. And it's not on there. You're right. And so I asked the bartender,
the soccer game's on, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, hey man, I'm talking to the brother, the bartender. I said, hey, turn the game on. And he's looking at me like I was smooth out of my mind. And so I'm still wondering. I'm like, what? Y'all don't like basketball? And he's like, looked at me and it was like, no. And I said, well, what's the sport? And he said, soccer. Right. And from that moment on, I ended up having a conversation with a brother at that same evening. And the brother looked at me and he says, in America, you guys think that you are everything. You say you're the world champion of basketball, world champion of baseball. He goes all down the line. He says, how can you be the world champion when you don't play the world?
Right.
And I was like,
and now they play in the world and they lose it. The USA basketball team lost to Australia. And then they lost to the Nigerians.
Yeah.
So they've lost back-to-back games. Now they're only warm-up games, but usually, the United States can win comfortably in international sports. The world, and that's really probably the problem, is that we live in a prior paradigm. We're almost a quarter century into the 21st century, but we still live through a 20th century prism. Mm-hmm. And we don't realize that in so many areas, the world has caught up with us, and in other areas, they've surpassed us. Mm-hmm. And the United States, has a false, braggadocio that they're the best, when, foreigners are saying, like, you used to be the best, and that's why you don't see the intimidation factor come into play anymore, because the United States, not only is its physical infrastructure crumbling, its intellectual infrastructure is crumbling because of racism.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Indeed. Now, the attention is turned in soccer to that European Cup and all that there. And I'd like to point out, y'all, they have the Africa Cup. Africa Cup is a big deal all across the continent. And so, my dream is to try to do a African soccer tournament here. I want to do it in that stadium. What is that called? Bank of California Arena.
Right.
If I had the backing, I'd make that thing happen.
Right. Absolutely.
Good stuff. All right. Before we get out of here, Dr. Anthony Saban, Phoenix or Milwaukee?
Well, I don't really have a dog in that fight.
Why? Because the Lakers.
Well, I'm a lifelong Laker fan.
Right. That's right.
And I let my friends talk me into rooting for the Clippers a couple times, and the Clippers will break your heart every time. Okay,
my hometown is San Diego, so I already know.
They come up with new stuff, new ways to lose. Like time management. I need to take some days off. I mean, so but I would like to, because Chris Paul has done a lot for the Los Angeles community while he was with the Clippers, and he's still doing a lot through the Brotherhood Crusade and other community-based programs. And 16 years is a long time to play without a ring. So I'm leaning in that direction. I don't really have a reason to root for Milwaukee. Okay? I mean, there's nothing against Milwaukee. I just don't have a reason to root for them. Okay?
Right. Man. Well, certainly they're making it exciting. And I was not expecting a sweep, but I also wasn't expecting to see Phoenix get beat up like they were the other day. They got beat up. Right. Man.
Well, as long as they win at home, they should win the series. They won the 2 at home. Now it's up to Milwaukee to hold court. If Milwaukee loses 1 at home, they going home early. As long as everybody hold home court, it'll go 7, and Phoenix should come out okay.
All right. Molly Bell's asking, what do we want for Haiti? I think we just want Black stability across the diaspora, I would think. Do we have allies in Haiti? The whole nation. I think I want everybody Black to win. That's what I want. I don't care. I just want everybody to win.
Let me respond to that. Because there is a such thing, as diplomatic support. Okay. And it can come in the form of aids. It could come in the form of grants. It could come in the form of food. And, when we call our Congress people, we don't always know what to ask for. Okay. And so the one thing we do want to ask for is to provide food support and medical support because the destabilization is affecting the everyday people. Now, whether or not we want to get involved in the politics of it, because that was a political assassination, okay? And when you get in the middle of political assassinations, in order to help, one, you have to have a side, 2, you got to have the arms and the military and the resources to send. United States, has already spread itself too thin in terms of military aid. Okay, the United States can't send nobody, no place else to die for nobody else. Okay, because they have upheaval. They bringing them boys home because they see a problem with these supremacists right now. Okay, and they gonna have to protect the homeland eventually. But we can, ask for humanitarian aid and support to Haiti. Haiti, unfortunately, is going to have to work out its own politics. And I don't know if there is a person that's coming, from the grassroots to replace this, puppet president that was put in place by the elites and it appeared by external forces, including the United States. The United States may not even want to touch it if that was their guy, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So much to contemplate, y'all. So much to consider. Take a deep breath. It's a lot, but we're thankful to folks like Dr. Anthony Samad and Monique Clesca coming to us all the way from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I didn't realize. I thought she was in Miami, actually.
Right. I knew that delay was extra long. You probably got some international charges you need to check.
Oh man,
international charges apply. You go from $50 to about $1,300 in a matter of 10 minutes.
Man, that was really, really something. So, but I'm really thankful that she was able to come on. You guys can go. She's got a website, MoniqueKleska.com. Let me put that in the chat. And you heard what they want us to do. So, I put Maxine Waters' information also in the chat. You can write her. And your suggestion, Dr. Samad, is to, encourage food support and what else?
Yeah, humanitarian aid. If the people want to give, just make sure that we identify the line. We give through the same organizations But I don't know if Randall Robinson's organization is still alive. But the reality is, we see that there are groups that can provide international assistance where your $5, will go to the people that you want them to want it to go to.
So much to talk about in that very regard, because I was listening to the NAACP at their national, one of their big meetings, and
virtual conventions.
Yeah. So I was on there, and I was just thinking, it's like, man, what if, because some parts of the NAACP, you wonder, okay, are y'all really down for the people, or what's happening? You're just trying to get the money from the white folks, so you're saying what they need you to say. You know what I mean? It's just like
that's a whole nother show.
Another show.
Come out of the NAACP. I read the book on the NAACP. Okay, so. Yeah. I still support the NAACP. I'm part of the Image Awards nominating committee, the literary committees, and have been for about 20 years.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the books that come out and win these awards, have my fingerprint on them. But, some of the branches are something altogether different, and, people get sensitive about it. But, any aspect of our community that cannot stand up to critique is not legitimate. People get sensitive when I talk about the church and white Jesus, and they just fall out. If it's for the people, it can withstand critique. If it's not, it won't.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, look at it. You can check this out on Coffee Conversations with Greg J on our Facebook page. You'll see it on demand at Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. You'll get the audio only a little later on wherever you get your favorite podcasts, Spreaker, iHeart, Apple, Google, wherever you want to do it, it's there. Just Google us, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Thank you all for listening, and share it, like it, tell a friend. Man, Dr. Saban, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Greg, and thank you for the invitation. And as always, if I can do it, I will do it. All right, my brother.
I appreciate you so much. All right, y'all. Love one another. Love one another. Love one another.
Take care. Peace.
Peace and blessings.
All right.